Hello and welcome to Growing Justice, Stories in Black Hair. My name is Capri Maddox, Executive Director of the LA Civil Rights Department. Today we are discussing an issue that most black women know firsthand, discrimination based on our hair. For black women and many black men, hair-based discrimination is a lifelong battle, and trying to deal with it can be deadly. A recent study from Michigan University found that 80% of African American women felt that they needed to switch their hairstyles to be accepted at work. However, forcing natural hair into unnatural hairstyles can carry devastating health effects. Recent studies have shown that chemicals used in hair products marketed to black women are linked to increased rates of breast cancer and uterine cancer. According to the International Journal of Cancer, black women who use hair dye and straightening chemicals are 6 times more likely to develop breast cancer. Today, we are combing through these issues and getting to the root of hair justice. Today with me is Councilwoman Heather Hutt, the first woman to serve as a representative of LA's 10th Council District. We also have Dr. Astrid Williams, Environmental Justice Program Manager for Black Women for Wellness. It's a nonprofit focused on black women's mental and physical health. And we have Tiah Tomlin-Harris, an advocate who overcame breast cancer and founded My Style Matters, joining us from Atlanta. So thank you so much for being here, where she continues to spread the word about toxic chemicals in beauty products. Thank you all for being here today. Councilwoman Hutt, let's start with you.
Sure.
As a professional and public servant, can you share experiences you've had navigating discrimination in the workplace?
Sure. There are microaggressions about your hair, especially as a black woman, especially as a black woman in leadership. And I have experienced that throughout my career. But really, it started sooner than that. It started in college, and I can recall dating somebody outside my race, and he got harassed by his peers, asking him questions like, how can you date somebody who has pubic hair on their head? So you can just imagine what that felt like in that relationship to him and to myself. And, you know, it ultimately ended the relationship, but that's how we're seen. When we talk about how we're seen, that's how we're seen. Like our hair doesn't belong there. I've had experiences where people in the workplace want to touch your hair, they want to pull it, they want to know if it's yours, you know, all of those things, and I'm sure we all have. And it's unfortunate that that is a part of the culture in the workplace. It's unfortunate that as black women and men, we're not seen for our ability. You know, even if we go all the way back to slave days in the 1400s, before we were slaves, we wore our hair in such a way to show our elegance and also to show our wealth. And so once the slave masters understood that part of our culture, they shaved the women's heads and made them wear rags, gilets on their heads. And in New Orleans, they said, well, okay, we're still going to be ornate, and they called them tignons, and they made them more ornate. But our hair has been a problem in America all along. And in my experiences, we have to make some changes. And you know, as a woman, especially for young women, they have to build up strength so those microaggressions don't get inside and then they can't function.
Right. I really appreciate that answer. And we've seen progress in fighting hair-based discrimination. And I just want to know if you can talk about the Crown Act.
Oh, of course. It was amazing when now Supervisor, but then State Senator Holly Mitchell did the Crown Act. It was almost like a sigh of relief for women everywhere. I want you to know that I'm the first black woman to wear box braids into council. And my colleagues looked at me and I was like, oh, braids, oh, I like your braids. Yeah, I wear braids. And then young people that are in the building, they said, oh, you wore braids, like it was almost like a sisterhood that, yeah, the councilwomen wore braids. I like the style, and I wear them as needed, as everybody else does. And,
Right.
and I don't think that should be a situation, but it happens to be one.
Right, especially for many, many years. changing your hairstyle could change how people treated you in the workplace. So thank you for that. And speaking of that, what do you think employers need to know about building safe workspaces for Black women?
Well, in California, since State Senator Holly Mitchell did the Crown Act, they need to utilize the Crown Act and know that they can't discriminate against people because of their hair. They need to understand that's a state law, and so that's how they need to operate their businesses, in government, in nonprofit, and in business. If they don't know, then we need to tell them. I think that's what this platform is about, to let folks know that the issue is not our hair.
That's right.
We should be seen for our value.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman, and that's why we're delighted to work with you as we lift a better Los Angeles with the Civil Rights Department. Now,
Thank you.
Dr. Williams, you study the issue of texturism. Can you tell us what this means as it relates to hair-based discrimination?
Yeah, so to expand upon what she shared about, the Crown Act, texturism is specifically looking at discrimination towards individuals based off of their texture. Usually it's more coarse or kinkier hair that you'll find, among Black women. And so it's the discrimination or the preference towards, silkier or, softer hair textures or even straightened hair. And so as a preference, and you'll find that, within your own, racial or ethnic group, as well as outside, as you mentioned. It can be in the workplace, professional setting, in schools, you'll see that, or, among their peers, being, discriminated or either treated, unfairly because of the texture of their hair.
Oh, thank you for that. And recent studies have shown that products made for Black hair can actually cause significant harm. And Dr. Williams, you know this very well, but can you share a basic overview of the toxic chemicals in beauty products and the risk they have?
Yeah, so there's been another number of studies that have come out showing the correlation between, the hair care products, beauty products that we use in the ingredients that are contained. But some of the, major offenders, if you will, are like parabens, which are used as preservatives in products. Oftentimes you'll see that. Also using, like soaps. And so sometimes you want that rich, lathery foam that, we're all accustomed to using, but that's not good because the parabens in there can be disruptive, to the reproductive system, as well as phthalates is something, and all these terms I know as a consumer, you don't hear these terms or know or knowledgeable of them, but phthalates is an umbrella of compounds that are under synthetic fragrances, and that's huge, just because fragrance for a long time has been able to be masked under that just classification of it, and manufacturers or brands did not have to disclose what specific ingredients are contained under the category of fragrance or perfumes in there. And phthalates also as well can be disruptive to the reproductive system. And then the last one I'll say, is to highlight, these major offenders are the EDCs, also known as endocrine disrupting compounds, and you'll find those in like leave-in hair treatments, leave-in, conditioners and treatments. Also chemical, hair products such as, relaxers, and even, dyes. And I'm sure you guys heard of, formaldehydes in there, and so that's not, definitely, a good thing to have in our products. And so just being mindful or aware of those, compounds, those ingredients are contained in the products that we largely use within our community, because we're spending a lot of money. It's a $7.5 billion industry that we are spending into it. It's largely by Black women, so we're literally caught, dying at the cost of beauty. And so.
Right. And speaking of that, since Black women contribute so much into the cosmetic industry, why are these products made so unsafe?
Yes, and so that's what we've been, advocating for a number of years. Just recently, the law was passed, modernization of, Cosmetic Act, that was signed in by Biden administration in late 2022, is because there wasn't any regulation for a number of years. It's been over 80 years we've been, working at this issue to try to, enforce these laws and these policies. And so to answer that is that, getting better regulation of that as an industry, you have so many, lobbyists and those that are in these, big, companies that are fighting against it because, they're looking at their bottom, end in terms of, products and making them, so they're not concerned about, the safety of it. And so when we go to the store or the shelves and we're seeing these products as consumers, we're thinking that they're safe and they're really not. And so how they're able to get away with this is because, lack of, regulation and laws and policies, which are definitely needed to make sure that these are, safer or cleaner products for us all.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Now, Tiah, let's turn to you. You are a survivor of triple negative breast cancer, and we know you found the connection to personal care products. I heard you on KBLA 1580 AM telling your story, and I just wanted to hear a little bit about your journey of confronting and overcoming cancer and how you made the connection with the chemicals that you were using.
Sure. So I was diagnosed at a young age with triple negative breast cancer. And for those who don't know, it's one of the most aggressive forms of breast cancer, and it mostly impacts women of color. And when I got diagnosed, I did genetic testing. The disease did not run in my family. No one had breast cancer or any relatable cancers. And so I started to do research and really ask myself, where is this coming from? Why me? What did I do to, have this to happen to me? And I just wanted to understand what were those risk factors. So, of course, I learned that there were genetics, lifestyle, environmental factors. And so I started to really try to understand what are the things that I could do to help myself overcome the disease. I believe that you can either feed cancer or you can fight it. And so when I started doing research, and my background is in chemistry, I used to be a chemist working in the pharmaceutical industry. So I had an understanding of chemicals. And when I started to research and looking at the products that I was using, I said, I've got to get rid of everything. And so what I did is I came home after seeing my doctor, my first appointment, I got a box and I literally got rid of everything in my home, from hair care products, skin care products, nail polishes, soap powder, dish detergent, cleaning supplies, you name it, I got rid of it because I knew that they weren't good for me. And I started to go with a more DIY, just kind of old school, like my grandmother back in the day, to replace the things that I was using until I could get to the point where I could find the products that were more non-toxic and clean. And like I said, what I learned through that, and I started doing more research, is, again, they have, as Dr. Williams shared, they have like the parabens, the phthalates, the endocrine disrupting chemicals. And it's funny because when I was young, and prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer, I was the girl that the bottle was pretty, I bought it. So, I love to smell good. And, you had the sprays, you had the lotions, you had the creams, you had the shower gels. And that was me. And I realized, I was really affecting myself and not knowing. As a consumer, I trusted the companies that were making the products, but unfortunately, without regulations in place, we're being harmed.
Wow, I really appreciate you saying that, and also talking about the cleaning supplies. As I was driving to this interview, there was a news bulletin about Fabuloso, a cleaning supply that is primarily used by women of color because it's only costs $1, it's commonly found in dollar stores. So why don't you think more people know about the dangers of cosmetics and the links to cancer?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I go back to when I was diagnosed a few years ago. Initially, there wasn't any research out there for Black women. And when I looked at some of the clean products, they were very expensive and they were not household brands. And so, when you look in our community, sadly, what do you see on every corner practically? You see a beauty supply store. And in those stores, there were products that were more household names, things that we shared amongst each other. And there was nothing that was mentioned to us about the things that we're using to harm ourselves. And if this wasn't a popular thing, I remember one particular brand that I got exposed to their product line, and they asked me to sell the product line. And I looked through the magazines and I said, there's nothing for Black women in here. So I did not want to be, one of their consultants to be able to sell their products because there was nothing for Black women. And I started to ask the question, why? And I was told there wasn't a demand for it. And so now I'm so happy to hear that, yes, there was research then, but there wasn't anything for Black people. Now we're starting to see more research on Black women, and we're starting having more discussions and more conversations around these types of things. And it's just a matter of us continuously having the conversation to spread awareness. We've got to get this message out into our communities, because it's not only affecting us as women, it's affecting our children. And that's critical and important.
Wow, I really appreciate you, talking about what's in the community and how some of these poor habits are passed down without, folks actually knowing what's in these chemicals. And so I really appreciate you sharing exactly how this happens. And for those that are just joining us, we are talking about discrimination and deadly hair care products with Councilwoman Heather Hutt, Dr. Astrid Williams, and Tiah Tomlin-Harris. I want to turn back to Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, Tiah had triple negative breast cancer, which is more common among Black women. Can you tell us why this cancer is more common among Black women?
Yes, and so oftentimes, as we know, and as Tiah noted, is that if you don't have a genetic or hereditary background in it, it's more common to find that it's because of environmental toxins, and that is really the major emphasis that we would like to lift up, because for a number of years it's thought that, oh, it's someone that's by relation in your family, but we're finding through more research that it's the environment. And so Black women as a whole carry a higher toxic load, and it's the cumulative impacts. And so what I mean by that is not only the products that we're putting in our body, the foods, the household products and the things of that nature, but also where we live is very important as well, and where you work, the environments that you work in. And so if you are in urban communities where they're faced with more of the toxic chemicals, or either factories and things, that can have a play on their overall health and well-being, as well as your setting of your work. So again, with those coupled to, everyday exposures can put you at, undue risk. And just to note on the, workforce, so that, hairstylists or, technicians or beauty professionals, we can't forget those, as well as they're, in a place where they have undue exposure, overexposed and underprotected as well, because they are day in and day out, using these, chemicals and using these products, or, having, direct contact, whereas it's for us as consumers more infrequently, we may go and get our hair done or our nails done, but they're exposed to this, on a more chronic, day-to-day basis. And so they're at a, fair, risk as well to exposures. And so getting back to the point about, breast cancer is that, yes, Black women, typically have a higher rate of, the triple negative aggressive, type of breast cancer, which research is still, underway to finding out why is it, but, you can't dismiss, the environment has a huge role in that as well.
Right, and I'm really glad that you brought up hairdressers. These are our leaders in the entrepreneurial space for Black women, and many of them are the head of their households as well. And so when they aren't able to work, that really affects the entire family, and it impacts the community in a significant way. So thank you so much for that. I have one more question for you. What is the one thing people at home can do to protect themselves? You're talking about all these things, and I'm here with you. I'm getting overwhelmed, like, okay, I have to check this, I have to check everything, and the Tiah's list and your list. Like, what can we do to protect ourselves and our families?
Yeah, so as Tiah mentioned, being informed, bringing awareness, and so as sister friends and girlfriends, it's like spreading the word, reading the labels, knowing what's in your products, and not just going off of face value for what's on the shelf. Because greenwashing, which we not to get into great detail about that, is where a product is perceived or portrayed to being something that's clean and safe, because it may be in a green bottle or may have the label on there fresh or clean on there, but again, this is not a regulated industry, and so they can make those, those claims on there that have not been substantiated or supported. And if you turn around, look at those ingredients, you want to look for whether it has these key, ingredients in there that can be harmful. So just being a savvy consumer and, taking it into your own hands to, doing your research. And we have resources, at our, website, online. We have Kim cards, so to say, where you can use pop in your, wallet or your purse. So when you're going to the beauty supply store or you're, in Target or wherever it may be, and you're looking, shopping for these products, you can cross-reference them, with the Kim cards that we have to see if those, culprit ingredients are listed or contained within those products.
I'm really glad you talked about greenwashing. One of the offenders on your website was a product that I used, and as Tiah said, if it looked pretty, you bought it.
Yes.
So it's green on green, and then they have like a green plant on it.
Oh, yes.
And, it has the word oil in it. But anyway, I said all that to say is, if I hadn't looked at your list, I would have continued to buy it for the rest of my life. And I think the greenwashing is something that's very important, and especially when we think about our young girls. You see Kitty Perm and you see a little girl's face on there, and I'm not saying that there's any challenge with that product, that people can read the list to know, but you see a person.
Yeah.
So on some of these cans and bottles, and I just think that is something that
they're marketed to us
exactly
for those products. Yes.
And so there's no disconnect of saying, well, we're surprised at who this product was for. And so people need to be as intentional to make sure that things are right for us. But I'm going to talk to Tiah in just a minute about how she turned her diagnosis into a movement and how empowering that was. Can you tell us about how you became an activist and how you've changed, how you've been a change agent in these spaces?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things I said to God was, you see me through this, I'm going to help as many women as I can. And I wanted to do it differently because there's so many lanes to educating women about breast health and breast cancer. But one of the things I saw was a gap in our community was what are the things that we can do to lower our risk of a recurrence of disease, to lower the progression of disease, even if you've already been diagnosed. And so with the things that I learned, I really wanted to go out and move people from awareness to action. Awareness is important. We need that. But okay, what do we do to take action? I can tell you these things all day long, but if I don't give you the tools and resources to equip yourself to make those changes, then you're kind of still stuck in the same place. And so I created a program called Breast Health Matters. It's for teen girls and women. And what we do is we educate them about breast health. And we also incorporate those risk factors, those things that are out of their control, but also the things that are within their control. So the very things that we're talking about today, we bring that to light to the girls. At the end of our program, we do have a fun exercise where we teach them how to actually make their own products, because we want to really impart various things into them. One, encourage them to become formulators in the clean space. This is something that we need, particularly for Black women. Also to help end poverty, give them a tool and a resource for them to be able to start their own businesses. And then, of course, also encourage them to become oncologists, breast surgeons, to work in the field of oncology, because we need more Black people in that space as well. I also developed a program called Eliminating Exposures. Again, we want to teach people how to read labels, what to look for, and, what can they do to replace those products. And a lot of times we think that these things are very, very expensive, but it may not be when it comes to, how much of the products you're using, how many products that you're using. If, again, like me, if the bottle was pretty, I bought it. But the other thing, too, is teaching women how to advocate, going to their legislators, talking about this problem, even in their communities, the hair salons, beauty supply stores, like, what are the things that they can do to help bring forth change? And so that is my mission, is looking at not only what you said earlier, Dr. Williams said is a multifaceted issue when it comes to breast cancer, but we talk about the things that you're putting in your body as well as the things you're putting on your body, because this is something that we're not aware of. And, oftentimes I get the aha moments from the young girls, and they ask questions because they're intrigued and they're interested in it.
Right. And I really appreciate thinking about formulating your own products. And as we were talking about cleaning supplies as well, my grandma was always cleaning with vinegar, for example. And I mean, just all the remedies that came from our community that we use in so many ways, and including different things for our hair. I think it's using food products on hair, and I thought, oh, that's what we're just doing that to save money. But who knew it may be something that's life-saving when you think of using eggs, for example, to put a mask on your hair. So I really appreciate the fact that you're teaching people how to create their own formulas. So Tiah, we know this expands beyond even hair care, right? And how do other things how do toxins affect our environment in other ways?
Well, in terms of our environment, I mean, again, it's the exposures, right? So anything that we put in the environment, even some of the bottles that we're using and things that we're throwing away, again, that's going into the landfills, and then that's affecting our soil, that's affecting us overall. So it's bigger than just the products that we're using. When we think about people's health, we also have to think about in the workplace. How does that affect us in the workplace when we're out sick and we can't work, and even just cognitively thinking, being able to be productive in the workplace, those things all impact us. And I just, we need people to rally around this issue. It's not just a Black issue. It's not a woman's issue. It's a people issue. It's affecting children and the communities, LGBTQ plus community. It's so many people that it's affecting, in so many ways it's affecting us, even down to our reproductive systems. So we have all got to get together to rally around this topic to affect change. If we want to live healthy and be healthy for our lives and for the next generation, we talk about generational health. That is something that we really need to get around this topic on.
Yes, I think it's important that you highlighted that this impacts not only African American women, it impacts society as a whole. Another point could even be the healthcare industry. So yes, when the health insurers are having to spend more money to take care of some of these aggressive cancers, that impacts the entire health system. When you think of the availability of hospital beds and resources, all the way to even the cost that the average insurer pays. So I really appreciate you making sure that we highlight how it is a problem for everyone. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Hutt and just say thank you again. And just to say for young women that are coming up, what is your advice for navigating workspaces? And we definitely want them to continue to be their authentic selves. But what advice would you give us?
So for women of color, specifically Black women,
yes,
find yourself a sisterhood so that you can have a conversation. We have the LAPIs of the world, we have NAACP, we have BWAPA, different organizations where you could really go to a safe space and have a discussion, get a mentor, and get some remedies so that you can navigate until we do some cultural competency in the workplace where people understand I am not my hair. Who was that? India Ari. That I'm deeper than that. And I get that you see me because I'm standing in front of you and your hair's this and your hair's that, and my hair's this, but I'm deeper than that.
Right.
And so we need to teach one, reach back, get a young woman, and have a conversation about what her issues are, because we are navigating the waters as elders.
Right. And we want everyone to feel comfortable with however they want to wear their hair in City Hall. And I really appreciate you, like from wearing box braids to any style. And I think that someone like yourself in Power, really sends a strong message. So what could the city do to support women that have faced hair-based discrimination?
I'll say it again, cultural competency.
Okay.
What our co-workers need a better understanding. They need the history. They need to understand that what we were forced to do as Black women, They need to understand it's our hair. Like, we didn't do anything to make our hair come out our head. That's how God made it, you know, and that it's beautiful. And aren't we lucky to be born at this time so that we can make these different changes and people understand we're deeper than this? I think the city could really invest in cultural competency. It could be a part of the training, just like harassment, just like, you know, any of those other trainings that we have to, mandatory training, click on our computer and do the test, and those are available.
Good, good, good. Yes, that's important. And thinking about like anti-bias training that we do with the city, maybe adding a component there.
That's right.
Would be something that maybe
That's right.
we can think about doing in the future.
I would love that.
That's great. Well, ladies, this is so important and is sending a strong message that discrimination has no home in Los Angeles or anywhere in America. But I think it is important to know that this issue is something that we have been fighting for a long time, especially when you think about you, Dr. Williams, you, Tiah. It is an honor and a joy to be here with all of you. Well, that's all the time we have, but I would like to thank our panelists, Councilwoman Heather Hutt, Dr. Astrid Williams, and Tiah Tomlin-Harris for joining this conversation. And thank you as well for Black Women for Wellness, My Style Matters, and Bench Community for all you do. Can I get your website, Tiah, as well as Dr. Williams? Can you give us your website?
Yes, I would love to. So we're Black Women for Wellness. We are located on the web at Black Women for Wellness, or bwww.la.org. Also on social, it's BW4WLA, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as such.
Oh, thank you so much. Tiah Tomlin-Harris, can you give us a website?
Sure. Yes, sure. My Style Matters, www.mystylematters.org. And you can find us on all social media platforms at My Style Matters.
All right. Thank you so much. And we can't thank our team enough here. Would you like to give your website as well?
Well, what I'd like to say to you, Capri, is thank you for the courage of having this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
This is not a conversation that we've had often enough.
That's right.
And that you have opened the doors to this. And you know what? There are people watching that are able to say, oh my God, they understand what I'm going through. They understand the microaggressions. They understand my concerns about my health. So I hope this becomes a series. I hope that you bring other folks into this conversation so that we could have a greater understanding. So I just want to appreciate you, give you some flowers right now.
Thank you.
And then my website is CD10, LA City CD10.
All right.
Councilwoman Heather Hutt, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we really hope that personnel, managers, legal analysts, as well as the healthcare industry pays attention to this and above and beyond, you know, consumer product advocates all around the nation need to step up and know this is a problem because they can't unsee it. So I'd like to thank you all again, and I'd like to really thank Mark Pamperman and the team here at Channel 35 for allowing us to have this conversation, and for all the viewers for tuning in. This is Capri Maddox, LA Civil Rights Department Executive Director, and I am wishing you all a wonderful Black History Month. Keep the faith and keep the fight.